Hello, ladies, and welcome to Jessica Hammond from the Opportunities Party. We're just really stoked to have you come on board and have a little chat to us about who you are and what you do and what the Opportunities Party is all about. We are a group of women in the 30 plus age group. Some of us are plus, and we're just running a political series at the moment and just wanting to learn as much as we can about the minority parties and, you know, just be informed before we go and place our votes. So welcome along. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Well, I'm a woman in the 30 plus category, so you're my people. Yeah, I live in Wellington, got two daughters who are 9 and 11. I'm a public servant by day and a politician by night, by weekend, by elections, by whatever spare time I have.
Wow.
Yeah. And I represent Ohariu, which is an electorate in Wellington.
Okay, cool. So you're definitely you're one of us, like you said, you're one of us. We're all women but you guys you're doing something a little bit different, and obviously you didn't have enough stress in your life already, having children and having a job already, so you thought you'd add politics to that. How did you get involved with the Opportunities Party?
Oh, well, I joined the party pretty much as soon as it existed in 2016. I'd been following. Sorry, I'm taking some water.
Go for it.
I'd been following the Morgan Foundation, which is what the party grew out of, and I liked the things they were saying. So pretty much as soon as they formed, having never been a member of a political party, never volunteered for a political party, I suddenly thought, okay, this is something I want to be part of. I think this could make a real difference. So I threw myself in there with no experience. Just votes in.
Right into the deep end,
Yeah, exactly.
So you must have obviously, again, I'm relating to you. I've got two little girls about roughly the same age, two older ones as well. But I'm relating to you from the perspective of haven't you already got enough going on in your life? It has to be something really important for you to step in and think, I want this in my life as well. Tell us a little bit about what the party actually stands for. What are the policies? What do they stand for?
Yeah, I mean, look, the thing that really motivates me and kicks me out of bed in the morning, apart from full bladder. Sorry.
Oh yes, so relatable.
I'm life. Is child poverty is the main thing that really gets to me. So my children are a huge motivator for me, because I know that they have a good and comfortable life and that so many other kids don't. So I guess I would say what TOP stands for is fixing the fundamentals of our economy, society and environment rather than tinkering. Sort of standing for those who can't vote, so children and future generations, looking long term and following the best expertise and evidence from New Zealand and around the world to fix some of these problems that have been with us for a long time, but many of which are not that difficult to fix if we just have a little bit of courage.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm trying to draw in all perspectives now. I've had lots of chats with other minority parties, and I haven't had chats with Labour or National, but I feel like I don't need to, because we get pummeled with information from them all the time. So just giving this some perspective, Labour said that was the number one that was in their goalpost, child poverty, and yet with Labour government it has increased by, is it 11,000 or something really massive, eh?
Yeah, material hardship has gone up significantly. Yeah.
So I mean, I think it's all very well and good for a party to say, oh, we want to fix child poverty, but what would you be doing different? What would TOP be doing different to what Labour thought they were going to do?
Yeah, so the biggest driver of poverty and inequality in New Zealand is the housing crisis. Yeah. So house prices have been rising faster than income for 30 years, like quite a lot faster. So incomes are, kind of fairly flat, and house prices have been doing this. And we all know that with how much it costs to buy a house or how much our rent costs. So even compared to 10 years ago, a person on the median wage paying median rent has to work an extra half a day a week just to pay their rent. I met with a single mum today, 3 kids. Her rent has gone up $150 in the past couple of years, and she was struggling before. And this is, she is just representative of so many families in New Zealand who are really struggling. So TOP's biggest priority is fixing the housing crisis. Housing crisis drives, as I say, poverty and inequality. It also drives our sluggish economic performance, because we all know we're spending so much money on housing, we don't have a lot of money to spend in businesses, and we don't have enough money to invest in businesses.
Yeah.
So it kind of underlies so many of our social and economic and even environmental ills, because we need to invest to decarbonize the economy. So the way TOP looks at this differently from other parties is, over the past 30 years, we've had 3 tax working groups advising National and Labour, and they've all said the root of this problem is the tax system. You've got to fix the tax system. And they've been ignored for 30 years. And so we're just not ignoring the expert advice. We just want to fix the tax system. Not that hard.
So what does that look like, fixing the tax system?
Yeah, so I wish I had my beautiful graphs here, but at the moment we have a tax system where if you have money, pretty much anywhere you put it in the economy, you're going to pay tax. So if you put it in a business or in your KiwiSaver or in a bank account, you pay tax, or you pay tax on your interest. If you put your money into housing, you don't get taxed. So we want to, so there's these other taxes up here and housing tax down here, and we want to kind of do this.
Yeah.
So that the property speculators who put more and more money into housing, even empty houses, even empty residential land, they can still make heaps of money from hiding taxes and hiding from taxes and having massive capital gains. So we basically need to fix the tax system that can hold. We don't want house prices to go down. We just want we want to flatten the curve. We all know about flattening curve. If we hold house prices steady for a generation, then those incomes can increase to meet them, and we can go from 7 times the median house now costs 7 times the median wage. Back in our parents' day, it was 3 times the median wage. We can actually get back to that, and then we'll have more money for other things.
Yeah, and just enjoy, actually even just get by in life. So I'm a single mum of 4 kids, and I know what that feels like. And it was probably rewind about 7 years ago when I would say that, even though it didn't look like it from the outside, but we were in poverty. I remember not being able to buy my son shoes for school, and sometimes they stayed home because we just didn't have, we had some food, but it wasn't food that you could put in a lunchbox. It was food that needed to be made up and ate right there and then. So I have come from that myself, and I understand that. And, yes, rents are ludicrous, thinking about the price of something I paid for back then compared to now. You don't get anything for your money these days, and then add Auckland to that, and then you've just got yourself a absolute fundamental mess for families as well, but for single parents, I think then we get into your health, because your health is affected by the fact that, stress levels is one, not having enough money because you're putting it all into your housing, so you can't afford to have preventative or just even decent food. It's a huge it's really a ticking time bomb, isn't it? So you guys want to come in and you want to fix it at the fundamental level, right? You don't want to be the ambulance at the bottom of the hill, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because at the moment we have 50% of the population has 2% of the wealth in this country.
Yeah.
And single parents, and 87% of single parent led families are women led families, are the poorest families in New Zealand. And so almost all of you are in that 50%. Meanwhile, people like me who bought our first house like 15 years ago, we just keep getting wealthier, and it's not because we're working harder. Of course we're not. It's just the tax system is doing this. We've got some supply issues as well, and we have policy around that. But this excessive demand. This is why we have 190,000 empty homes in New Zealand.
Yeah,
Yeah, to make
unpacked
money out of
them.
it.
Yeah, we've got in the area where I live. There's, I guess, what you would call, it's a bit of the Truman Show kind of a. I don't know if you've seen that, but it's a bit
Oh
of.
yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah, but it's a bit of that kind of area, and all the houses are brand new, and they're like 3-story, 4-story. They're massive, massive houses, and you drive past the ones, and they've got absolute glorious chandeliers through their atrium windows and things, and that they're empty. You've never seen a single person in there except for the lawnmower guy. They're empty, and they are quite a lot of them are Chinese owned, and that's not saying anything bad against that community. They're just obviously onto it, but where they put their money. But it's a really, what are we supposed to do? Where do we start?
Exactly. So I mean, and you're right. We need to fix the fundamentals, and that means fixing the tax system. And there are other things we need to do. We can bring down the cost of new builds, for example. We can encourage more density in certain areas. There are things we can do on the supply side, but any sort of expert in this area is going to tell you that it's our demand for property that is just insatiable and out of control.
So 3 different parties at 3 different times in different debates, I've heard them talk about different things. One particular party talked about land strangulation. Actually heaps have talked about RMA, and I hear everybody wants to shut everyone up about that conversation, but I want to talk to you about that. And what's the other one? Anyway, there's just a lot of conversation around the land and the property and development. So what does the RMAs, and what does that mean?
So first of all, the land strangulation, I think the problem, there's 2 things. There's land banking.
Yep.
And our tax system encourages land banking. So that just basically means put your money into land and it just sits there and you don't do anything with it. Or you do something with it that's not an efficient use of the land. You're not really, really using the asset the way it should be used.
I like pine trees.
Pine trees. Or in my area, we've got this, can I swear?
No, but that's okay. We're all big girls. We're all big girls.
You
can. I thought you said, did you swear? Oh no, you can.
Oh no, oh you're okay.
Oh no, you go for it.
I was only going to say shitty. I wasn't even going to say.
Oh, you go for it.
I couldn't think of a better word. We've got this shitty rundown mall.
Yeah.
That is just about a ghost town, and it's been like that for about 27 years. But the land just keeps making money. So why would the developers bother, making it into a real business?
Yeah.
So land banking can either be empty land or it can just be ill-used land. And that's because of our tax system as well, because we have these extraordinary capital gains because of our tax advantage for land and property. So there's that. Then there's, Nationals always talking about land. I think what you mean by land strangulation is that we are not sprawling everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, we're sprawling like around Auckland, you're sprawling like crazy, right? Over into farmland, into natural, into native bush and wetlands and all that stuff. So we can either cover the whole country in houses and be like England, where you just go from town to town with nothing in between, or we can encourage better use of the land we have. So that's going to be some building up, it's going to be stopping land banking, so we can do some clever urban planning. So we do want to reform the RMA. Well, we want to replace the RMA with an Urban Development Act, and then a different kind of piece of legislation to protect natural and rural areas.
Yeah.
So this is a policy that we've had for some time, and we think it's great that some of the other parties are getting on board. That we do need to encourage integrated planning and more development around public transport and active transport infrastructure.
So why do you think it is that big parties such as Labour and National, even though they say the same things, why is it that we don't see any results in this?
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me they're not prepared to. The thing with big parties, right, is they're trying to appeal to more than 50% of the population.
Yeah.
And when you're doing that, it's safer to do as little as possible, because you don't really deeply offend people if you don't do anything. So when things sort of slowly sort of drip, get worse and worse and worse and worse, you know, we maybe don't notice so much. Whereas if they did something radical, they would piss someone off. And I mean, in particular, when you're talking about property prices, we're talking about the wealthy people, really older. These are people who vote in the highest numbers. These are people who donate to political parties. So I think they're just afraid. And some of it is, you know, you and I are having quite a good long conversation, but it's not always easy to express this stuff in a sound bite. And I think a lot of politicians are afraid to do things that can't be expressed in a sound bite.
It's quite frustrating, eh?
It's frustrating. It is a bit grim, but it's also, I'm a bit of a Pollyanna, my friend. You know, I think it's kind of exciting because we know, because of this political cowardice, that there are all these amazing solutions just sitting there waiting to be grasped and implemented, and we can do it. And these, you know, these problems that everyone's like, oh, it's such a shame how we've got half the population in increasing poverty. That sucks. I don't like that. But I mean, this is the thing I've been saying, is like, you get to feel sad about poverty and inequality, or you get to ignore the evidence on how to fix it.
Yeah.
You don't get to do both. So choose which one you want to do. And I have a child coming in.
That's right.
And so, yeah, so I get very frustrated. Oh no, I have a husband coming in. I'm actually on a interview. I'll see you in a bit. So yeah, so I think they need to choose.
And do you think that Labor hasn't quite chosen because there's been no real outcome?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And you know, I think I think most people go into politics meaning well, and wanting to make a difference.
Yes.
But then I think they get afraid. I think they get afraid of losing power, and I think they maybe forget why they're there. So the question I would ask of Labor, and I think they've done a lot of really great things, and I really admire the way they have, in a rare situation, you know, followed the expertise when it comes to COVID. Is, okay, you'll tell us, oh look, we can't do anything because we don't have enough seats in Parliament. We need to get bigger. And then you have the most popular Prime Minister we've ever had, and they're still not doing anything that would make fundamental change. So my question is, what are you waiting for?
Yeah.
When will you have enough? Exactly. When will you have enough power? When will you have enough seats where you're going to actually fix the things you say you care about? I feel like they've forgotten what the point is. But for me, and I think this is the thing about most of the people on top, I have no interest in being a politician for the sake of being a politician. I've got other things I could do with my time. I only want to be in there if I'm going to be making a positive difference. Otherwise, I will do something else.
Do you think, this is my personal opinion, but are you of the opinion as well that Labor and National and some of those big parties, they have a lot of, I guess, what you call career politicians, no real frontliners, and you know, for lots of us women, how do they relate to us? How can they possibly relate to us?
I feel like most women have had the experience of seeing men in positions of power or in senior positions and gone, is this really the best we can do?
Yeah.
And I do feel that way a lot about a lot of, not just men, but a lot of the people in Parliament, that New Zealand, you can do better.
Yeah.
You can do better than this. And it is, you know, it's a well-paid job, and it comes with status, and a lot of people love the game. I like to say that there are a lot of Slytherins in politics.
Yeah.
They love the, you know, the maneuvering and trying to do clever things, and it feels like, to some I think it is just a game. So yeah, there are people who go into politics for for those sorts of reasons. But
do you think that because so because you made reference to those men who get in there and we can't relate to them, but now that Jacinda's coming in, she's a mum, and she got pregnant while she was there, and she's a woman, and rah. Do you think that that we just became enamored by that just that portrayal of women in government, women in power, and we were all like rah rah rah, yay, a woman's doing it? Do you think that maybe some people have lost sight of what's actually happening in the government? Or
yeah, I mean, I think that's probably true. I do absolutely believe Jacinda Ardern when she says she wants to change things and she wants to make a difference.
Yeah.
I guess maybe, I haven't been in Parliament. Maybe when you're in there and it's so busy and stressful, maybe it's hard to keep your focus on what you're really there for.
Yeah.
And your focus moves to getting more seats, getting a higher percentage of the vote. And maybe people do forget. I hope I won't.
I would hope that. Yeah, I would hope that as well, that people who really have got such a heart for the people would get in there and then remember the people, because that's what it's all about. What I'm seeing personally, just from all of these interviews I've done, is I'm seeing that it doesn't look so much like a democratic process anymore. It doesn't look like us, the people, have a voice at all. It feels more and more like we just get told what's going to happen and we have to go along with it. And it feels like a lot of freedoms are getting squashed. Does that feel true, or is that just the nature of the time that we're in at the moment?
I mean, of course, there are times when some freedoms get temporarily suspended, and that is sometimes necessary. But I definitely share your frustration at feeling, people who feel like they're not being listened to, feel like it doesn't make a difference who they vote for. Because I think, my view is that when it comes to National and Labour anyway, it doesn't necessarily make a lot of difference for a lot of people. So when we see low voter turnout among youth, I have a lot of sympathy for them, when they say it's not going to make any difference.
Yeah. I wonder though, because as a youth myself, I never was a dope smoker, not saying that I didn't ever try it, but I was a bit too vain and it made me look a bit too ugly. So I didn't want to look gross, so I didn't smoke. But I do remember when it came to voting, me saying I'm voting for the Greens so that we can legalise marijuana, because that's what all of our friends were doing. And so I was just like, I'll just do what they want to do, because I actually really had no concept of politics and no concept of how it was going to affect my future. So that to me was how the youth are. But then we've got the flip side. We've got, us in this age group and older who are looking at it and going, I have no clue who I want to vote for. So that maybe they just don't hear enough from, this is the reason why I wanted to showcase minorities, because I thought we're not hearing enough about the other parties, surrounding parties. We're only hearing about National and Labour and ACT and those bigger parties, and we hear lots about them. And I honestly think a lot of us only vote on the information that we've got, and it might be off the mainstream news media or whatever. I haven't watched TV for 7 years, so I actually have to go digging for my information, which has probably been a benefit to me. But other people who will watch the 6 o'clock news, they'll only see those bigger parties. So how on earth, we've got these people on this side voting just on what they see, these youth either not voting at all or voting for things that are okay for them at the time, and then we've got this chunk of people in the middle who will vote, and that's maybe our small minority of people who are going to look into the minorities. How are we tracking? How are we tracking against those bigger parties? Are we going to be able to make a difference?
Yeah, I mean, it is really challenging, and I think that that New Zealand and the media plays a role in this haven't quite adjusted to the fact that we're in an MMP environment, not a first past the post environment, and the two big parties are not the only parties that matter. So at top we have a lot of frustration around this, being shut out of debates. So I really appreciate people like you wanting to showcase different options that people have, and it's just different options. I recognize that most people vote for the bigger parties, and that's fine, but small parties tend to be where bigger ideas
Yeah.
come from.
Yeah.
And we can, depending on how the numbers fall and whether, you know, where you sit on the political spectrum, small parties can have a very big influence on the outcomes, you know, relative to their size. So for us, sitting in the middle, willing to work with either National or Labour, you know, in the position that Winston Peters has held, you know, we've seen that small parties can have an outsized influence. So that's what we're hoping for.
And that's what I'm hoping for as well. I really would like to see, because actually, again, I've talked to quite a few of the minority parties now, and I just love the passion, and I love that they really want to affect change in government. And nobody's really mean about the bigger parties, but they're all pretty much on the same wavelength. They all know that they want to get in there to affect change. They want to mash it up a little bit, and I want to see, even if it's a small party, I want to see them come in and be the rudder that pushes them into another direction, or, you know, changes the trajectory of the conversation there in government. Do you think that the Opportunities Party, has got what it takes to do that?
Oh yeah, I mean, one of the things about us is, so because we have access to the same information as everyone else, right? I mean, we spend a lot more time on we spend hundreds of hours on each of our policies, but that information is out there for everyone.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's coming from the government, from the public service, from the different working groups that they get and then ignore. So the ones who have been around for a while, and the ministers, a lot of them actually know that our ideas are good. So a lot of them would love to do it. They'd love to change the tax system. They'd love to talk to reform the welfare system, which is something I'd love to talk to you about. If we get in, then Labor's almost certainly going to win. We can get Labor to do the kind of stuff they probably deep down would quite like to do anyway, and they can just blame us for it. That's fine. We don't mind.
At least you get to go, right?
yeah, they can blame us for anything that, you know, when they're talking to, you know, to someone who's maybe disadvantaged, they can say, well, it was our coalition partner's fault. If it's great, then they can take the credit. Whatever. Just want it to happen. Just want the change, however it happens.
Yeah, I hear you on that one. So one of the things that we did in the beginning when we started just sort of putting our feelers out, put the toe in the water in the group, because we'd never talked about politics before, and actually I had a few people leave because they said they refused to have politics in the group, and I was like, oh well, toodly pip. It's very important, you know. I just think it's hugely important. We just put up, you know, a post, and we just put all of the minority parties and all of their policies, and just gave people the free liberty to look through them. And this is before we decided to do interviews. So there was quite a lot of good feedback for TOP, and quite a lot of people who said, well, thank you so much for putting up the policies, because now I'm sure I want to go with TOP. And then there was, and so I thought that's awesome. And then I saw that there is, and you can explain this policy to me, and I think this might be to do with the welfare, but what's it called? UBI, yeah. So talk to me about UBI, because that sounds like something that some of the ladies were like, that is such a good idea.
Oh, it's so exciting. So it stands for Universal Basic Income. Some people say unconditional basic income, but we say universal basic income. It's an idea that has been around for decades, and it has been trialed in different places around the world. And basically it means that everyone, or every adult, gets a certain amount of money, no questions asked, to cover some of your basics. It doesn't matter who you live with, doesn't matter who you're sleeping with, doesn't matter whether you're working or not working, whether you have kids, don't have kids. You get this basic level of dignity and, you know, an ability to have a bit of freedom in your life. So a lot of parties like it. So, you know, Sue Bradford from the Greens loves it. Don Brash, formerly of National and now sort of with ACT, loves it. A lot of people love it for all sorts of different reasons, but they say, well, you know, we like the idea in theory, but we can't afford it. So at TOP, we were like, you watch us.
Yeah.
Hold my beer. We've found a way of affording it. So seniors over 65 already have a universal basic income. We call it New Zealand superannuation. So our policy is that everyone aged 18 to 65 would get $250 a week, no questions asked, and children would get $40 a week, no questions asked. So what that means is that, again, none of work and income's business who you live with, who you're sleeping with. If your hours go up and down like this, you don't need to worry about you're going to be paying too much and having to pay them back, because there's no abatement rates. So if anyone, people who are on benefits know all about abatement rates, but others may not. That just means when your income goes up, your benefit goes down.
Okay, yeah.
There are some people, particularly on sole parent benefits, who can lose 25 cents an hour for working for certain hours. Others will end up effectively earning $2, $3, $4 an hour because their benefits go down as their income goes up.
Yeah.
Universal basic income, you keep every dollar you earn. So for us, the way the proposal that we've put forward is this $250 for every adult, $40 for every child. We pay for it. We show, this is one thing TOP does. We don't make any wild and irresponsible promises. We always say how we're going to pay for things. So $250 is tax-free. Over that, there's a 33% flat tax. The combination of those things is more progressive than our current system, as in poorer people end up more better off than wealthier people. But everyone ends up better off. It saves hundreds of millions in bureaucracy. It in the trial in Finland, depression dropped by a third, substance abuse dropped by half, compared to people getting the same amount of money on a traditional benefit. Because it's just, I think people just breathe this massive sigh of relief just knowing that they have this money.
Not just to get by.
Great for seasonal workers, great for casual workers.
Actually, so I can relate from the perspective of, you know, when I first became a single mum, I had to, well, I was always working until I had my back-to-back babies, and then I had to choose. Once my husband, like, I've got a piece of hair in my face, once my husband left properly, he was gone, I had to decide whether I was going to try and make my business do something, or I was going to go on to a single parent benefit. And when I crunched the numbers, there is no way that I would have been able to survive and continue to build my business on a single parent income. Because like you said, you know, this goes up, that goes down, and there would be never any security in that, and it would just be terrifying, and it just wasn't enough anyway. So I feel like that, you know, that could make people feel really, really safe having that 250 baseline amount. But so after that, the 33% tax, which is quite, you know, it's quite high, but does that get higher and higher as they earn more, or is it just a flat tax rate for everyone? It's
a flat tax. So one of the good things about that is really high earners, particularly high earning business people, are quite good at structuring their affairs so that they don't pay a lot of tax. When it's flat, it's really hard to avoid. You put some accountants out of work. But you know, generally it's going to make people better off. One thing I should have mentioned is that under our policy, no one on a benefit would be worse off. So your first 250 would be unconditional. People on sole parent benefits or supported living payments, for instance, accommodation supplement, you can still get those top up amounts. It's just the first 250 is unconditional.
So it's the invisible amount, which is kind of nice for people. Though, as I'm learning more about and talking to different people, I'm hearing about that whole socialist agenda coming in. Does that feel or sound a bit socialist, to put everybody on a kind of a even playing field? So I would not arguing, because you know, I love all the different perspectives of the parties, but so for example, New Conservatives would say, no, that's just going to make people not want to try hard to get anywhere. What do you think of that as an argument?
I mean, one of the biggest benefits of a universal basic income is it does encourage work. When you have abatements, you know, every dollar you earn, you keep, you know, you sometimes don't even get $1 of it, you know. Sorry, you sometimes don't even get 1 cent of it, is what I meant to say. So with a universal basic income, every extra hour you work benefits you. So it really does encourage people to work more hours. It makes it much easier to avoid the welfare trap. So at the moment, say you're on a sole parent benefit, you can work for about 6 hours, and that's great. After that, for the next 6 hours, you keep, if you're on the minimum wage, if for the next 6 hours, you keep only half of what you earn. For the next, I think it's 16 hours, you would keep $0. So who is going to work more than 2 days a week? It's no one. It would be, you know.
And that's probably why you see, not that I personally know anybody, but, you know, I do know that there is a lot of benefit fraud, and that would be because people can't afford to live, and so they just...
we are really, really incentivizing people to do work under the table. And from an employer's point of view, I have been an employer, and if you want to pay someone a pretty good wage, say you want to pay someone $25 an hour, and you know they're only going to keep 5 or 10 of it, as an employer, you feel like crap, you know? So I think it encourages employers to pay under the table as well, because they want to be good to their workers. And the other thing that happens with our benefit system, and I know from personal experience, when I was on a student allowance, for instance, I knew I could earn, I think at that time it was like $130 before abatements would kick in. And my employer would say, can you do another shift? And I'd say, no, I'm not going to mess with abatements. So a lot of employers really want their good workers to work more hours and can't get them to. So I think getting rid of that. So I think the New Conservatives are really just wrong on this. The traditional benefit system discourages work. A universal basic income encourages work.
Okay, that sounds good. It sounds like a pretty good policy to me, and I think some of the ladies agree, because there's been a lot of chit chat about that. What are some of your other strong policies going in? Housing and UBI are our two sort of biggest priorities. A climate-friendly recovery from COVID is another one. So in particular, you know, at the moment the government is spending countless billions of dollars on infrastructure, shovel-ready projects and so on. And because they're, you know, in their haste to pump as much money into the economy as possible, they're not necessarily doing the due diligence on some of these projects. So, and frankly, there's a opportunistic vote buying happening. And that's what I really hate about. Okay, so keep remembering where you're going to go with your conversation. But that's what I hate about coming up to elections. I feel like I can't trust any of the policies that people talk about. I feel like I want to just go back, rewind, look over the last 3 years and say, what were their big policies, the ones they said they were their, their
manifestos?
Totally, their manifestos, and they will not, and they won't deviate off those. They want that to happen, and then you look 3 years down the line, and none of that's happened. And I know that we've had, you know, COVID, and we've had all these different things, but just say rewind COVID, and we had a couple of years before that. What happened in those couple of years? Did those things happen? Because I feel like I do honestly feel like we are distracted, and we're saying this government's been so marvellous considering what they've been through, but were they, you know, look at that 2 years up until what they went through, what was happening then? And that's where I have to argue that I did not see the policies that were their fundamentals. I did not see them follow through on those, and so I feel like frustrated.
And it does erode trust. I think this is one of the reasons we think it's really important to say how we would pay for things, and to only promise things that we think are actually doable, because every time a politician makes a promise that they can't deliver, it erodes trust in politics. Every time a politician tells a lie, it erodes trust in politics. Every time they act unethically. And when we don't have trust in politicians, I mean, this is one thing, because Jacinda Ardern is very popular, it took less effort to get people to comply with COVID rules. So her being a trusted person is very, very valuable to us. So I think we need to recognize the value of having trust in institutions and be really careful not to undermine it. So the thing about the infrastructure is, with government spending billions of dollars, not of their own money, but of our children and grandchildren's money, on infrastructure projects with eye-watering price tags and questionable benefits that, as I say, our kids and grandkids have to pay for, I think it just makes us feel really cynical, apart from the fact that it screws over our children.
Yes.
So, you know, I used to work as a public servant in land transport infrastructure funding policy. And in the late 80s, early 90s, sorry, I hope this is not boring.
That's good.
In the late 80s, early 90s.
Lay the groundwork, yeah.
Yeah, the politicians were like, before that, they're like buying votes left, right and centre. Like, you know, wow. We've got an electorate we like. I promise you that bridge. I promise you that train station or whatever. Yeah. And some very wise politicians back then said, look, we can't be trusted with infrastructure spending. We need to put it to an independent board that's going to make the decisions with local authority input. And that was working great. So they looked and you know, line up all the projects across the country, and we've got this much money. We're going to do all the best ones. And these rubbish ones down here, they just ain't going to happen. And that was great. And then over the past 20, 30 years, the big parties have been like, but we liked buying votes. We liked being able to do the bribes. So they have been eroding that independence. So TOP's policy is for infrastructure funding to depoliticize it. So you have to have a really good business case if you're going to be spending billions of dollars of public money on an infrastructure project, roading, water, all those sorts of things. So we think that'll make a really big difference, because it means that the projects that we fund will bring with them the ability to pay for themselves, because they have really good benefit cost ratios.
It's the return on investment.
Exactly. You know, we want to get to carbon zero by 2050. That's not going to be decided in 2049. Whether we get there or not is going to depend on the infrastructure investments we make over the next 5 years. So just building something because it's shovel ready is bananas, in my view.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that one for sure. Let's talk about that carbon bill. So I had an interview with Bristol Grove Dairies, her post went viral. She was, usually a pretty resilient person, farmers, and had found herself up during the night thinking, how will we bounce back from this new law that has been put through? So as you know, it's the Waterways bill, and she was saying, and she talked about how the farmers, 15 years ago maybe they were a bit of a mess, but she said we have done so much to try and curtail our lazy farming, and we're all doing our very, very best, and there's always dodgy farmers, but for the most part we're all working together to create an awesome environment. And she said, some of those waterways you couldn't swim in them 200 years ago, so why do they want us to be responsible for the cleanup now? What's your philosophy or your thoughts on that? I mean, lots of people are saying they're going to repeal that one if they get in. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, so just to step back, so we want to follow the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment's advice on climate change and water. So when it comes to climate change, the advice of the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment is that you should treat fossil fuel emissions different from agricultural emissions. So fossil fuel emissions, we just need to stop, so we need to generally get those down to zero. That's because fossil fuel emissions keep building up in the environment. Agricultural emissions kind of cycle in the environment. So there's a certain amount you can have and that you can maintain without increasing warming, even though they are powerful greenhouse gases. Yep. So we want to take trees out of the emissions trading scheme. That will increase the carbon price. It'll actually double the carbon price. That's going to encourage us to really sharply, over time, not that sharp, but reduce our fossil fuel emissions
before 2050. Yeah.
Right, yeah, exactly. So that'll really incentivize us to decarbonize and to invest in things that help us to decarbonize, invest in technologies and infrastructure that helps us to decarbonize. we can use trees to offset agricultural emissions. This is what the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment advised. So not planting pine everywhere, but particularly putting natives on riverbanks, erosion-prone land, those sort of marginal land. And this is what farmers want to do, but we want to reward them for doing that. When it comes to water, the first thing that we think we need to do is to resolve water rights. At the moment, we are maintaining this fiction that nobody owns the water, which means that overseas water bottling companies, for example, can take it for free. So it's just not working for us. And the reason a lot of parties don't want to touch it is because we'd have to resolve Māori water rights. So it's like this massive elephant in the room, and because no one wants to see the elephant in the room, we can't resolve anything else. So we're like, let's just have the conversation, deal with the elephant in the room, then we can talk about sensible water rights, then we can stop overusing water in places like the Canterbury Plains, and we can look at farmland on a catchment by catchment basis. There's some places where we have masses of water and it's not a problem. There are some places where we shouldn't be irrigating. In Canterbury, people are at risk of bowel cancer because there is the levels of nitrates in the water. We've got to do something about that. But our approach that we have developed with farmers is the Eleanor Ostrom kind of model, where you say, look, you get together as a catchment community, look at what levels of pollutants are there, how you can bring them down. And if you can do that without the government regulating, awesome. Government will not mess with you. If you can't, there's this big threat of regulation hanging over you. But let's give you a chance at a community level to try and fix the problems that are there. And as you say, some areas have already done a great job, and then why do we need to regulate them?
So that's the frustrating bit. The conversation that I had with Susan, she from Bristol Grove, she said, we are working in our catchments, and our catchments are working together. We're talking about these things together. She said, what's not happening is the government are not consulting with us. So they're sitting around their little round table with their hot cup of coffee and their scone, and they're a whole bunch of career politicians saying how our farming should look according to these statistics and this environmental stats and rah. And I hear their frustration and see their frustration because they're working really, really hard, and saying that the government aren't actually hearing them. So what would you do differently if you got in?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we have done is we've developed this policy with farmers. I don't know anything about farming, so my job is to listen to the experts on farming, and so this is how the way we do things at top is we have a policy committee that's separate from our political arm. So I don't write policy. Our expert people write them, and they pull in experts from different sorts of domains. So we've worked with farmers on this policy, followed the advice of the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment, and things like the what is it called, the Water Science Technical Group that was within the Ministry for the Environment, I believe. So we listen to the people who do know about this stuff, because politicians don't know about everything, right? We shouldn't pretend we do,
Yeah. So there's going further, they're talking of all the pugging regulations, and that's all to do with the waterways as well, and they're saying this is just impossible. How are we going to farm? Or they can still farm, but they'll have to either downscale massively, which is going to end up costing us New Zealanders, because we're going to export all of our good stuff, and we're going to end up paying ridiculous amounts of money for our dairy and our meat and things like that. So I mean, some of these things, this law, it doesn't need to be re-looked at. I mean, it's already released. It's within a year. It's by next October, I believe, it's going to be in full effect, and they're going to start really, really feeling the pain of that. Then, is it too late if you get in? Is it too late to say, oh, let's re-look at that law? Like, is this going to work?
I mean, it's never too late. You can always review a law when something's not working. And you know, if we've been developing legislation that's not based on a foundation of facts and of expertise, then yeah.
And so the job of the MPs would be to, correct me if I'm wrong, would be to go into the community and find out where these problems are and then relay that information or bring those concerns back to the government for the people, right? And that's what TOP are going to be doing in all those different areas.
That's right. It's the job of the the local MPs to listen to their constituents, and it's also the job of ministers to listen to the advice of the public service, because you know there is a lot of expertise resting within in that public service, and you need to be willing to listen to people.
Oh, I don't know how you guys do it. I've had just so many conversations with so many different people now that I feel like I've got an overload of information, and I feel as desperate and passionate as you do, but I'm not going to be in there. Thank goodness for that. And I just think it's amazing what you're going for. It's just amazing. I think. Oh gosh, I don't even know where to go from here. I think it's you've got some great policies. I think you've got a great passion, and so tell me, is there anything else you want to finish up with? And I'm going to release this video out to the masses and
so let me see, I've covered off 3 of our 4 priorities. Our 4th one is smart small business. So you know, we have over 500,000 small businesses in New Zealand, and you know, we really want to support them. You know, we like to imagine things like you know, what if every one of those businesses, or what if half of them, could take on an extra employee? One of the things that really bugs me about what we're doing to businesses is we keep imposing minimum wage increases on businesses, and of course we do that because from a place of compassion, because we want people to be able to afford their living costs. The major driver of their living costs is housing. So we're making businesses pay more and more and more for a problem that government has caused. So we want to bring down these living costs so that we can actually take some of the pressure off businesses to keep increasing wages to keep up. So this is where our universal basic income would take minimum wage earners to above the living wage without having to put pressure on businesses to actually pay that living wage.
So, that was a really, my head was totally blown by this whole, you know, raising the minimum wage right now at this time in this economy. Like, how does that work strategically for the government? Like you said, you know, they do like to put things out right before elections to make them, you know, fluff up the votes for themselves and things like that. But wouldn't that just make all of the small businesses absolutely hate them and not want to vote for them? And who do they get their votes from in that case?
Well, I suppose traditionally Labor's been the party of workers and unions, and National's been the party of big corporates. So you know, we tend to think maybe no one's really thinking about the small businesses, and we want to be a party that you know, recognizes small businesses' value and makes it easy for them to succeed. Because you know, we've got to get taxes from somewhere, right? We've got to get jobs and exports from somewhere. So we can't undermine the that foundation that maintains our living standards, and so we think businesses can be a real part of the solution for a lot of the problems we face. We don't want them to be everyone's scapegoat or whipping boy.
I resonate with that as well as a small business owner, and also being surrounded by other women, and we're pretty much all small business owners, and each and every single one of us would love to be we'd like to employ people. I will contract things out, but I would never ever want to, like at this point I don't really need to, but I'd love to have a full-time admin. That would be awesome. But at this point I can say, all right, I'm going to give you this on a contract and I need all of this done. Just takes the pressure off me for that amount of time until the pressure comes back again, then I need to pay someone else. But yeah, it would be really, really nice just to be able to, you'd be able to start seeing growth if you could just take a little bit of the pressure off yourself. And I think a lot of businesses, apart from the economic, disaster that we're currently in, apart from that, it would just be nice to be able to have some of the pressure, because you're not usually, there's lots and lots of women business owners, so many, but they're also mums and wives and have other part-time jobs because they're trying to grow their little businesses. So that, if we could have somebody that said they would support small businesses, I could imagine, I can already see how many hands up there would be for that as well. So yeah, that's an awesome policy. Wow, that's pretty fancy. I'm really happy to have listened and got some really good information from you. And
I really appreciate it, Natalia, and I think it's I just think it's very cool what you're doing. Getting the word out there from a range of voices.
And it's just because I'm just pretty nosy myself, but actually some of the, and we haven't been able to do this one live, which has been a pain, but some of the talks that I've done, I've had, you get really awesome comments and then you get some really horrible ones. And there was one particular guy, and this is obviously really rubbed me up the wrong way, and he said, she's a bit dizzy, but good conversational, good questions, and it's like, oh, okay. It's so frustrating. I'm not a journalist. I'm just I'm a mum with 4 kids and a business and a group and a community of people, and we just want to have answers to our questions, and I'm really just being the voice to ask the questions. And I feel like that's what this platform is for. It's to enlighten people, it's to inform people, and I feel like it's such a privilege to be able to talk to people like you, because normally how do we get this much information? You have to really go digging for this sort of information, and we just don't have the time to do that. So it's all covered in one chat, which is just awesome.
But if people do have questions, I'm actually very contactable. They could email me on jessica@top.org.nz. I'm very active on Facebook, so a lot of people send me messages and things, and I'm really happy to answer any more questions anyone has.
That's so good. Okay, so I'll link a couple of those things to the video. So this is going to YouTube, and then I'll pop it into a couple of the groups and put your links. You just tell me what you want up there, and then we'll connect them. Is there anything else that you want to say to the ladies before we finish up?
I guess what I would say to anybody is please make sure you vote. Remember that you don't have to party vote and electorate vote for the same parties. You can split your vote, and sometimes that's a really smart thing to do. And it's great that you're getting informed. If you're watching this, you're already getting informed, so well done you.
One more question about that. Lots of discussions, arguments we've had has been about we don't want to give the minority a vote because that's a wasted vote. If they want to see the end of one of the big parties, they think they've got to vote for the other one to get rid of that one. So you tell us, just finish up with that.
Thank you for bringing that up. I should have thought of that, because this is the conversation we have with people all the time. So, to get into Parliament, you either have to get 5% or you have to win an electorate. So we're not polling at 5% at the moment, but we are targeting electorates. We're in particular targeting my electorate, which is Ohariu. So I am trying to win that electorate. If I win that electorate, every party vote counts. But, as a representative of a party that stood in 2017, every single vote mattered for us. It mattered for our motivation and giving us a mandate to continue, but also in concrete terms, it affects how much funding you get in the next election.
Wow.
So you can actually, build a momentum, election by election. So we think we have a great chance of getting in this year. Yep. Despite what you might have seen in the polls.
Your polls are going up and up. It's good.
we have been, and that is fantastic. But I'd also say, if you believe that any vote can be wasted. You know, there are a lot of ways to waste your vote. And one of the ways that a lot of people waste their vote is voting for a big party that's not going to change anything. So I guess I'd ask people to vote for what you believe in, and maybe vote with some courage, because we can change things. We're not going to by doing the same stuff we've always done.
I love that. That's the perfect finale. So good. Thanks so much for coming and having a chat with us. Really, really appreciate your time. And we'll see you again, hopefully really soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
See ya.
Becky D.
Cool.
Oh,
that was really good. Thank you so much. I'm not like I said, I'm not a journalist, so sometimes I'm like a little bit with my words.
Oh no, you're asking fantastic questions. I mean, it's really obvious that you know your stuff, and
I actually really enjoy it, which is really scary, because quite a few people have said, "Oh, you're going to be a politician." I'm like, no, I'm not.
It's not for everyone.
Absolutely not. But I love having the conversations, and hopefully, like, I would love it. I don't know what happens for you going forward, but if you do get in and you start like making a difference, I'd love to have more conversations with you.
Yeah, for sure.
And
I'm gonna follow your page.
It's it's not as so like I'm doing this political series and I love doing this is my thing, but the page is it's really a chicks kind of oldie girls community, and they talk about everything, so it can get a bit much, just so you know.
Okay.
The page is different. It's not the group where you're seeing all the information all the time, but the page where I'll first put this is mostly interviews at the moment. Cool. Yay. Thanks heaps.
Cool.
Have an amazing weekend.
Thank you. Yeah, it'll be busy, but it'll be good. Last weekend before the election. So you have a good weekend yourself.
Do you know what? Just before we finish, I thought, like, I did an interview, was it Wednesday? And then I thought, okay, I think I'm done now. Like, I think I'm just done. And then I woke up I was really tired, like really emotionally drained. And I woke up the next morning and I was like, right, got to do some more interviews. So it's almost like an addiction when you start wanting
that's cool.
to change,
yeah
and
yeah, totally.
That must be how you're going, because you can't possibly just be doing this for the love.
I mean, I'm a pretty energetic person, but that mum I met today with 3 kids, I was like, gotta do it for her. Yeah.
Heaps of respect for that. Okay, all right.
Okay.
Best of luck.
Thanks so much.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.